guys, Dora here, and today we're doing my January/February wrap-up. For the month of January, I only read 2 books, so I decided to do my January wrap-up with my February wrap-up. So without further ado, let's just get started. The books I read in January were Sarah J. Maas's first 2 books in the ACOTAR series, and that's A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Court of Mist and Fury. If you want an in-depth review, I'll leave the link to my review/book talk for the first 2 books down in the description box below. I gave the first book an 82%, mostly because it was a slow starter and it didn't get exciting until the last 100 pages. Now for A Court of Mist and Fury, I gave it a 99%. That book was absolutely amazing. We threw the Beauty and the Beast retelling out the window, but all the same, it was a great story. Now for my February wrap-up. So the next 2 books I read in February were Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone and Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Now I'm rereading these books via audiobook form, and so far I am loving them. Jim Dale is an amazing narrator, though I do have to say that the way he says Harry's name in Hermione's voice, it's getting a little annoying. Which brings me to my next point. Jim Dale has so many varieties of voices that each and every character has their own voice, and I absolutely love it. The third book I read was Diabolic by S.J. Kincaid, and I gave this novel an 83%. This book I can already tell is going to be a guilty pleasure read for me. I loved the characters, I loved the story. For fantasy and sci-fi novels, I already have a very hard time with the world building, but with Diabolic, I felt like it was even harder to build it up in my mind. I felt like the world wasn't explained properly, so that's why I think there were so many holes in the world building. I also want to mention that this was supposed to be a standalone novel, but apparently because of all the popularity it got, it is now being turned into a trilogy. I don't know how I feel about that, since the first book was really great and it felt like it wrapped up everything nicely, so I'm not sure in what direction the story's gonna go with the other 2 books. To say the least, I'm not very excited about them. The next book I read was Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys. I gave this book an 87%. I absolutely adored it. I think Ruta did an amazing job once again. Though I had really high expectations for this book because Salt to the Sea was so amazing. I consider it a masterpiece. I read it twice in 2016. So for Between Shades of Grey, my expectations were this high. And when I read it, what I actually thought it was like right here. Though it didn't meet my expectations, I still felt like it was a really great book. And I love how Ruta keeps telling us the story about what was going on in Russia and not in Germany. Really. All we learn in history is about what was going on in Germany and the Holocaust, but we never really get to dive into the other half of what was going on in Russia with Stalin and the Lithuanians and the torture that they were going through, because though this book was amazing, Ruta didn't shy away from the raw and gritty stuff. But I know things were probably much more worse than how they were portrayed in the novel. Once again, thank you Ruta for an amazing historical fiction novel. The next book I read was Scarlet by Marissa Meyer. I read Cinder, I believe at the early stages of 2016, and I absolutely loved it. Cinder is a retelling of Cinderella, though Cinder is a cyborg. Scarlet is a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, and Scarlet is not a cyborg. She's what they considered, I believe, human. And she's a great character. I love her, and I love the narrator for the Cinder series because I've also been listening to the audiobook and I've been switching to the physical copy as well. I believe the narrator for the Lunar Chronicle series is Rebecca Stoller, but she's an amazing narrator. So Rebecca is one of my favorite narrators. No doubt about it. She's also the narrator for Caravel, which I'm currently listening to. I gave Scarlet a 91%. I thought it was a great story. I love how Marissa keeps adding characters to an already existing story and how they mesh together. When I started Scarlet, I didn't realize that we were gonna keep seeing from Cinder's point of view, and when I found out we were, I was super excited because I didn't want to be left wondering what happened with her. I also read Marissa's bio, and it says that she lives in Tacoma, Washington. So she's a Washingtonian as well, so she's turning into one of my favorite authors. So 2 of my favorite authors actually live in the same state as I do, just different cities, and I hope they have more signings here in Washington so I can go and see them both. The last book I read in February was The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis, and I gave it a 98%. This was a huge surprise for me. I did not think I was gonna love it as much as I love it. It turned out to be a pretty awesome story. It's not anything of how I thought it was gonna be, though I was right in the aspect that it is a thought-provoking novel. It's not much of a political statement as I thought it was gonna be, because it has nothing to do with politics. It's mostly just stories about this teenager who she knows how to kill people, and that's not a spoiler because it's actually in the synopsis. And also, for a contemporary book, it was not predictable at all, and I absolutely loved it because I had no idea what was gonna come next. I was taken by surprise. Everything, all the twists and turns were totally unexpected. Mindy is a great author. I love how she worked with each and every character and their development. She really did stay true to each and every character because of the personalities, and I loved that. It's not like she threw something in there, it's like, whoa, where'd that come from? That's not something she or he would do. So as I said, her character development was absolutely gorgeous. And I also think the reason why I enjoyed it so much, the reason I loved it so much, is because of the story and the characters. They all seemed tangible. I felt like I could switch out the characters with people I grew up with, people I went to school with, and it was like I was back in high school. Yeah, like I said, this story did take me by surprise and I absolutely loved it. It did make me cry, which was a total surprise, and I'm totally going to reread this book pretty soon again because, like I said, I loved it. It was a great story. Those are all the books I read in January and February. Leave down in the comments down below what your favorite read of February was, and make sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more of my face, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!